You have experienced this. You reach a point in the day, maybe mid-afternoon, maybe after a difficult meeting, maybe in the third hour of a creative project, where you feel done. Empty. The tank is not just low, it seems empty. Your attention refuses to cohere. Your motivation has flatlined. You feel, at a bone-deep level, that you have given everything you have to give. And then, sometimes, something happens. A deadline materializes. A person you want to impress walks in. A sudden flash of interest ignites in the problem you were drowning in. And you discover, to your genuine surprise, that you had more. Much more. The fatigue was real, and yet, somehow, it was not the whole story. William James found this phenomenon one of the most revealing features of human psychology. In his famous essay, The Energies of Men, written in 1907, he laid out a framework for understanding mental energy that remains profoundly useful over a century later. His core claim was audacious. Most people go through life using only a small fraction of their available mental and physical resources. Not because they are lazy or weak, but because the ordinary conditions of life never require, and rarely invite, the full deployment of what they actually possess. James borrowed an image from athletics, the second wind. When a runner approaches exhaustion in the first stages of a race, they hit what feels like a wall. Every physiological signal says stop. But experienced runners know that if they push through this moment, not by ignoring their body, but by committing to keep going despite the signals, something shifts. The breathing reorganizes. The muscles find a different rhythm. A new reservoir of energy opens up. The wall was not the end of capacity. It was a gateway to a deeper level of it. James believed this phenomenon applies directly to mental work. The fatigue that tells us we are done is often what he called inhibition, a psychological blocking mechanism rather than a genuine physiological ceiling. Our nervous system has learned, through habit and expectation, to interpret certain signals as exhaustion signals. When those signals appear, we stop and never discover what was available on the other side. This is not to say that fatigue is not real. James was too careful a scientist to make that mistake. Genuine physical and mental depletion exists. Sleep deprivation, chronic stress, illness, and overwork produce real impairments that cannot simply be willed away. But James noticed that most of the exhaustion people experience in ordinary daily life falls well short of genuine physiological limits. We have learned to stop early. What determines where we place our stopping point? James identified several factors. Habit is one of the most powerful. If you have spent years stopping work at the first sign of difficulty, your inhibition threshold has been trained downward. You have essentially taught yourself to run on only a fraction of your tank. Conversely, people who have regularly pushed through difficulty, athletes, artists, soldiers, scholars deeply committed to their work, have trained their threshold upward. They tolerate discomfort and resistance as normal parts of the working experience, not as stop signals. Motivation is another powerful factor. James observed that people in the grip of intense purpose or passion routinely exceed what they could achieve under ordinary motivational conditions. The writer working on something they deeply care about can sustain creative effort for hours beyond what would normally exhaust them. The parent responding to a child in danger accesses physical resources that seem impossible under normal circumstances. The passion is not creating new energy from nothing. It is unlocking energy that was always there but inhibited. Social accountability also plays a significant role. People consistently perform at higher levels when they are being observed, when they have made public commitments, when they feel they are part of something larger than themselves. James understood that the self is a social creature, and that certain social conditions can unlock reserves that solitary effort leaves untouched. For practical purposes, James's framework suggests that the question, how do I get more energy, may be less productive than the question, what is inhibiting the energy I already have? The energy is there. The goal is to remove the psychological blocking mechanisms, the habits of early stopping, the learned associations between difficulty and failure, the isolation from the motivational power of meaning and social commitment. This means, concretely, push through resistance a little further than feels comfortable, regularly enough that your inhibition threshold rises. Connect your work to larger purposes that generate genuine motivation. Create accountability structures that mobilize your social energy. And perhaps most importantly, develop a relationship with discomfort that is curious rather than avoidant, treating difficulty not as evidence that you are at your limit, but as a signal that you are approaching the edge of a deeper reservoir. James himself was a man who dealt with significant physical and psychological difficulties throughout his life. He understood mental energy management from the inside. And what he concluded was not that energy is fixed and scarce, but that it is abundant and largely underutilized, waiting, as he put it, for us to make the demands upon ourselves that will release it. If you want to explore more of James's extraordinary insights into human capacity and performance, subscribe to The Psychology of William James. There is more in you than you know, and James will help you find it.